PennDOT has traveled throughout Pennsylvania to hear your thoughts about electric vehicles. We consistently heard that there is a need for reliable information about electric vehicles. This is EVs in Focus. As we plan for a future where a growing number of vehicles are electric, many are asking the question, will the electric grid be able to handle charging all those electric vehicles, or EVs? The short answer is yes. With proper planning, investments, policies, and coordination among utilities, regulators, and policymakers, the grid can handle a transition to EVs. To answer in more detail, it is first important to understand what the grid is. The electric grid is the network of infrastructure that produces and delivers electricity to consumers. There are three main types of grid infrastructure: generation, transmission, and distribution. Power is generated in power plants and then transferred long distances, including across state lines, through transmission lines. Shorter distance distribution lines then carry electricity to end users, such as homes, businesses, and EV charging stations. Think of transmission lines as highways and distribution lines as local roads. The United States is divided into multiple regional grids. Pennsylvania, along with 12 other states and the District of Columbia, is part of the PJM grid. When considering the impacts of EV growth on the electric grid, it is important to understand that the transition to EVs will be gradual. A recent analysis from Consumer Reports found that even if every new car sold in the United States today were an EV, it would take 15 years for almost all vehicles on the road to be electric. That's because vehicles are typically driven for 15 years, so utilities, grid operators, and policymakers have time to prepare. It is also important to remember that utilities and regulators follow planning and coordination processes to ensure the grid remains reliable as new sources of energy demand are added. For any new large power user, like factories, data centers, or large EV charging sites, a request for electric service needs to be made to the utility. The utility then assesses whether existing grid infrastructure is sufficient to handle the new demand or whether upgrades are needed. Of course, utilities do not always know about smaller increases in demand. For example, someone could buy or lease an EV and start plugging it into an existing outlet, and the utility wouldn't know. However, utilities are aware of this challenge, and many are actively working on solutions to gauge how many EVs their customers have. For example, the Pennsylvania utilities, Duquesne Light, and PECO offer a one-time bill credit to customers who notify them that they bought an EV. Still, preparing the grid for substantial EV adoption cannot happen overnight and will require investment in grid infrastructure. Encouraging EV drivers to charge at times when energy demand is low is an important part of the solution. For example, the Pennsylvania utility, Duquesne Light, offers an electric vehicle-specific rate that makes it cheaper to charge overnight. Off-peak charging can reduce the amount of grid investment that will be needed to serve EVs and can also provide benefits to all electricity customers. Consider a restaurant that finds they are packed at dinner time but fairly empty at other times. The restaurant may offer an early bird special where they lower prices during less popular dining times to increase the number of customers they can serve in a day without having to expand the building to add more seating. By increasing their sales without increasing their fixed costs, they could lower their prices without losing profit. Similarly, if EV drivers charge during off-peak times, utilities can increase their electricity sales without having to invest in as much new grid infrastructure. In fact, a recent study from Synapse Energy Economics found that between 2011 and 2021, EV drivers in the United States generated $3 billion more in electricity revenue than they added in cost to grid operators. Pennsylvania's electric utility regulator, the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, encourages Pennsylvania electric utilities to develop EV charging rate structures that will increase off-peak charging. Many utilities see the potential benefits of EVs and are investing in programs to support EV adoption. Across the country, investor-owned utilities are investing more than $6.5 billion in EV programs. So, yes, the grid can handle the growth of EVs with thoughtful planning and coordination. Failing to properly prepare could slow EV adoption and put strain on the grid. But proper planning that enables significant EV adoption could help keep electricity prices lower for everyone. This was EVs in Focus, the electric grid.